The divorce filing arrived on a Tuesday morning, delivered by a process server who looked uncomfortable handing legal documents to a woman who was 8 months pregnant. I stood there in my maternity pajamas, belly stretching the fabric to its limits, while this stranger officially informed me that my marriage was over. "Jessica Turner?" he asked, though we both knew he already knew the answer. "That's me." "You've been served." He practically ran back to his car, probably grateful to escape before the pregnant lady started crying or screaming or whatever he expected me to do. But I didn't cry. I just stood there holding the envelope, feeling the weight of it in my hands, knowing that inside was the ending Michael had promised, but I'd never quite believed would come. 3 weeks. It had been 3 weeks since the night I'd finally pushed him too far. 3 weeks since my best friend Amber had convinced me to test his loyalty with a fake seduction. 3 weeks since he'd discovered our scheme and told me to get out of the house we'd bought together in Memphis, the one with the nursery he'd painted soft yellow for our daughter. I waddled back inside and tore open the envelope, scanning the legal language that reduced 5 years of marriage to asset division and custody arrangements. Michael wasn't asking for much, just freedom from me and shared custody of the baby once she was born. His lawyer had even included a note that he'd continue paying for my apartment and medical insurance through the pregnancy and delivery. Still taking care of me, even as he cut me out of his life. That was so typically Michael. The man I'd tortured for months with my insecurity and paranoia was still making sure I had somewhere safe to deliver his child. Our child, I corrected myself. Though given how I'd behaved, I was lucky he still wanted anything to do with either of us. My phone buzzed with a text from Amber. "How did the appointment go?" The appointment. My 36-week checkup that I'd had to take an Uber to because I'd totaled my car 2 weeks ago in a fit of rage, wrapping the front quarter panel around a concrete mailbox after Michael refused to answer my 47th call of the day. The impact had bent the axle and cracked the radiator. A $15,000 car destroyed in 5 seconds of blind fury. Another casualty of my spiral into complete insanity. I ignored Amber's text. She'd been notably absent since the night her brilliant loyalty test had destroyed my marriage. Funny how the friend who'd spent months feeding my paranoia had disappeared the moment there were actual consequences to face. I lowered myself onto the couch, the same one Michael and I had picked out together at a furniture store, arguing playfully about whether we needed the matching ottoman. We'd gotten it, of course. Michael had given in like he always did, wanting me to be happy. And how had I repaid that kindness? By becoming a monster, the moment I got pregnant. It hadn't started out so bad. The first trimester had been rough with morning sickness, but Michael had been a saint. He'd held my hair while I puked, brought me crackers and ginger ale, rubbed my feet when they swelled. He'd downloaded pregnancy apps and read them religiously, announcing each week what size fruit our baby resembled. "She's a lemon this week," he'd say, hand on my still flat stomach. "A perfect little lemon." But somewhere around month 4, something shifted in my brain. Maybe it was hormones. Maybe it was the weight gain. Maybe it was watching my body change into something I didn't recognize. But I became convinced, absolutely certain, that Michael was losing interest in me. It started with small things. He'd work late, and I'd assume he was avoiding coming home to his fat wife. He'd scroll on his phone, and I'd be positive he was looking at other women. He'd go to the gym, and I'd torture myself imagining him flirting with fit girls who didn't have stretch marks and swollen ankles. "You okay, babe?" he'd asked one night after I'd spent dinner glaring at him over my plate of food he'd lovingly prepared because I was too tired to cook. "Fine," I'd snapped. "Why? Am I too boring for you now?" He'd looked genuinely confused. "What? Jess, where is this coming from?" "Nowhere, everywhere, I don't know." I'd started crying, which had become my default state. "I'm getting huge and gross, and you probably wish you'd married someone who stays skinny when they're pregnant like those Instagram models." "Jess, you're growing our daughter. You're beautiful. You've never been more beautiful to me." But I hadn't believed him. Couldn't believe him. The logic center of my brain had been hijacked by pregnancy hormones and insecurity, and nothing he said could penetrate the fog of paranoia I'd wrapped around myself. The food thing started around month 5. Michael had always done most of the cooking. He genuinely enjoyed it and was good at it. But suddenly nothing he made was right. Too salty, too bland, too much garlic, not enough flavor. I'd complain about every meal, even as I ate every bite. "These tacos taste like cardboard," I'd announced one night, shoving my third one into my mouth. "Then why are you eating them all?" he'd asked, not unkindly, just confused. "Because I'm starving, because I'm eating for 2, because someone has to eat them." "Jess, I can make you something else if you don't like them." "Don't bother. Everything you make tastes like crap anyway." The hurt that flashed across his face should have stopped me. Should have made me realize I was being cruel to the man who was working 12-hour days to save money for the baby while still coming home and cooking dinner every night. But I was too deep in my own misery to care about his feelings. The gym fight started in month 6. Michael had maintained his workout routine throughout my pregnancy, going to the gym 3 mornings a week before work. It had never bothered me before. I used to go with him sometimes, proud of my disciplined husband who took care of himself. But pregnant Jessica saw it differently. "Must be nice," I'd muttered one morning as he laced up his sneakers. "What's that?" "Getting to escape to the gym, getting to have a body that still works properly, getting to be around all those tight-bodied women in sports bras." "Jess, I'm going to the gym at 5:30 in the morning. It's mostly old guys and serious lifters. And even if it wasn't, you know I only have eyes for you." "Right. That's why you can't wait to get out of here every morning. Can't stand to look at your whale of a wife." "You're not a whale. You're pregnant. There's a difference." "Is there? Because I've gained 45 pounds, Michael. 45. And every pound is beautiful because it's helping our daughter grow." He'd kissed my forehead and left for the gym, and I'd spent the next hour hate-scrolling through fitness influencers' Instagrams, comparing their abs to my basketball belly. The accusations got worse as I got bigger. I'd accuse him of checking out waitresses when we went out to eat, even though he literally never took his eyes off me. I'd go through his phone while he slept, searching for evidence of cheating that didn't exist. I'd interrogate him about female coworkers, demanding to know if they were prettier than me, thinner than me, less crazy than me. "There's a new receptionist at your office," I'd announced one night, having stalked his company's LinkedIn page. "Brittany something or other, she's blonde." "Okay. Is she pretty?" "I honestly haven't noticed." "Bullshit. Every man notices if a woman is pretty." "Jess, I love you. I married you. We're having a baby together. Why would I care if the receptionist is pretty?" "Because I'm a cow," I'd wailed. "Because I can't see my feet. Because we haven't had sex in 2 months." "We haven't had sex because you tell me you feel gross every time I try to initiate," he'd pointed out gently. "I'm ready whenever you are. I think you're sexy as hell carrying our baby." But I'd just cried harder, convinced he was lying, that he was just saying what he thought he had to say to keep the peace. By month 7, I'd driven him to work more than 80 hours a week. Not because we needed the money, though baby stuff was expensive, but because home had become a war zone where nothing he did was right. If he brought me flowers, I'd accuse him of feeling guilty about something. If he didn't bring me flowers, I'd cry that he didn't love me anymore. He couldn't win. The food criticism had evolved into an art form. I'd devour entire meals while listing everything wrong with them, leaving him nothing but my complaints. Chicken was too dry while I gnawed it off the bone. Pasta was overcooked while I went back for thirds. Steak was too tough while I cleaned my plate and eyed his. "Maybe I should just stop cooking," he'd suggested one night after I'd called his lovingly prepared lasagna barely edible, while serving myself a 4th piece. "Oh, so now you want me to starve? Pregnant women need to eat, Michael." "That's not what I—" "Never mind, I'll keep cooking." And he did. Every night, no matter how late he worked, no matter how much I'd berated him the night before, he'd come home and make dinner. The saddest part was that he was actually an excellent cook. Friends used to beg for his recipes. But pregnancy had turned me into a culinary critic from hell, impossible to please, yet always hungry for more. The loyalty test had been Amber's idea, though I'd been a willing participant. She'd come over on a Saturday afternoon while Michael was at the office, catching up on work he'd missed while taking me to various appointments I'd insisted he attend. "I still think he's too good to be true," Amber had said, rubbing my belly like it was a crystal ball. "No man is that patient, that understanding. He has to be getting it somewhere else." "He says he's not. He says he still finds me attractive." "They all say that." "But look at you, no offense, babe, but you're huge. And you've been, let's say, difficult lately. Any normal man would have at least been tempted to stray." "So what do I do?" "Test him. See if he's really as loyal as he claims." Amber had been relentless that day. She sat at my kitchen table, sipping the iced tea Michael had made for us before he left, and shook her head. "Men get bored, Jess. It's biology. You're incapacitated right now. And he's a man with needs. If he isn't getting it here, he's getting it somewhere. Better you find out now before the baby comes, so you can take him for everything he's worth." "But he seems so happy about the baby," I argued weakly. "Men are good actors. My ex seemed happy too, right until I caught him with the nanny. Just do the test. If he passes, I'll buy you a spa day. If he fails, well, at least you won't look like a fool." I wanted that spa day. But more than that, I wanted the gnawing rat of anxiety in my stomach to die. I wanted proof. The plan was simple. Amber had a friend named Tara who Michael had never met. She was everything I currently wasn't. Slim, blonde, perky, in all the right places. She'd approach him at the gym on Monday morning, flirt aggressively, and see if he took the bait. "If he turns her down, you'll know he's faithful," Amber had reasoned, "and you can finally relax and enjoy the rest of your pregnancy." It had made sense at the time, probably because my brain was swimming in hormones and insecurity. What I hadn't considered was how Michael would react when he found out about the test. Because of course he found out. Tara, feeling guilty about the whole scheme, had confessed everything to him right there in the gym. He'd come home that morning instead of going to work, and I'd never seen him so angry. Not the hot, explosive anger I'd been directing at him for months, but a cold, quiet fury that was somehow worse. "You tested me?" he'd said, standing in our kitchen still in his gym clothes. "You actually set someone up to try and seduce me?" "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like, Jessica? Because from where I'm standing, my pregnant wife just got a stranger to hit on me at 5:45 in the morning to see if I'd cheat on her. I didn't hire her. She's Amber's friend. And I needed to know." "Know what? If I'm faithful?" "Jesus Christ, Jess, what have I ever done to make you doubt me? I work myself to death to provide for our family. I come home and cook dinner every night while you tell me how much it sucks. I rub your feet. I go to every appointment. I tell you you're beautiful 50 times a day. What more do you need from me?" "I'm sorry," I'd whispered, but it was too late. "No, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. The criticism, the accusations, the going through my phone, and now this, testing my loyalty like I'm some kind of cheating dirtbag. I'm done, Jessica. You can't leave me. I'm pregnant with your baby." "I'm not leaving the baby. I'll be there for her always. But you and me, we're over. This isn't hormones or pregnancy mood swings. This is abuse, and I'm not going to subject our daughter to growing up in a house where her mother treats her father like garbage and plays mind games for fun. Michael, please." "Pack a bag. I'll pay for a hotel until you can find an apartment. I'll cover all the expenses, all the medical bills, everything for the baby, but I want you out of this house. Today." He'd meant it. Michael, who had never raised his voice to me in 5 years of marriage, who had weathered every storm of my pregnancy with patience and grace, had finally reached his limit. His lawyer had made it clear. He didn't want the court thinking he'd abandoned a pregnant woman, even if she'd driven him to it. And could I blame him? I'd turned into someone I didn't even recognize, a paranoid, cruel, manipulative version of myself who treated the best man I'd ever known like he was the enemy. I'd begged, pleaded, promised to change, to get therapy, to be better. But Michael was done listening to promises. He'd heard too many apologies followed by more abuse, too many cycles of tears and accusations, and brief reprieves before the crazy started again. "I'll always love the Jessica I married," he'd said, as I'd loaded my suitcase into an Uber. "But that person is gone and I can't keep waiting for her to come back. Maybe she will someday, but I can't live like this anymore." The hotel he'd put me up in was nice, far nicer than what I deserved. An extended stay suite with a kitchenette close to the hospital where I'd deliver. He'd even had groceries delivered, all my pregnancy cravings stocked in the mini fridge, taking care of me even as he cut me out of his life. Amber had been supportive for about 2 days before she'd gotten bored with my crying and self-pity. "I mean, you kind of brought this on yourself," she'd said during what would be our last phone call. "Maybe the test was too much." "It was your idea." "Yeah, but you didn't have to do it. And honestly, Jess, you have been pretty awful to him. I wouldn't have lasted as long as he did." Even my best friend, who had enabled and encouraged my worst impulses, could see that I'd gone too far, that I'd taken a good man who loved me and systematically destroyed him with my insecurity and cruelty. The apartment Michael had found for me was in a safe neighborhood, a 2-bedroom unit perfect for me and the baby. He'd hired movers to bring my things from the house, had the utilities set up in my name, even made sure the bassinet and changing table were set up. All communication went through lawyers now, but his actions still spoke of care and consideration I'd done nothing to earn. I'd tried to hate him for leaving me, tried to paint myself as the victim, a pregnant woman abandoned by her husband. But every time I started down that mental path, I'd remember the meals I'd insulted while devouring them, the accusations I'd hurled at a man who'd never given me a single reason to doubt him, the ultimate betrayal of testing his loyalty like he was a lab rat in my sick experiment. The truth was, Michael hadn't left me. I'd driven him away. I'd taken a man who would have walked through fire for me and pushed and pushed and pushed until he had no choice but to save himself from my toxicity. My phone rang, interrupting my self-pitying reverie. Dr. Patterson's office, probably confirming my appointment for tomorrow. Everything was on track for a healthy delivery in about 4 weeks. Michael would be there. He'd made that clear through his lawyer. He wouldn't miss the birth of his daughter, even if he couldn't stand to be married to her mother anymore. "Hello? Hi, Jessica. This is Nancy from Dr. Patterson's office. I'm just calling to confirm your 36-week appointment tomorrow at 2? "Yes, I'll be there." "Great! And will the baby's father be joining us?" I closed my eyes, feeling the familiar sting of tears. "No, he won't." "Okay, no problem. We'll see you tomorrow." I hung up and looked around my apartment. Nice, but impersonal. Nothing like the home Michael and I had created together. The walls were bare, no photos of our wedding or vacations or the life we'd built. Those were all still at the house, probably boxed up in the garage so Michael didn't have to see reminders of what we'd been. The baby kicked, a strong movement that made my whole belly shift. She was active, this little girl who would grow up shuttling between 2 homes instead of 1, who would have parents who couldn't stand each other because her mother had lost her mind during pregnancy and destroyed everything good in her life. "I'm sorry, baby girl," I whispered, hand on my stomach. "I'm so sorry I ruined everything before you even got here." Another kick, like she was responding. Michael would have loved this, would have put his hand on my belly and talked to her about engineering or cooking or whatever random topic was on his mind. He'd had a whole list of things he wanted to teach her: how to ride a bike, how to throw a baseball, how to make the perfect grilled cheese sandwich. He'd still teach her those things, just not with me by his side, because I'd made sure of that with every cruel word, every baseless accusation, every test of his love that he'd passed until the final one that broke us. I thought about texting him. Just a simple message about the baby moving, the kind of update we should have been sharing. But I'd lost that privilege. lost the right to share these moments with him when I'd decided his loyalty needed testing, when I'd turned Amber's toxic suggestion into action. The legal documents were still spread on my coffee table, Michael's signature already on all the required lines. All I had to do was sign and return them, and our marriage would be over. 5 years dissolved because I couldn't handle getting fat and hormonal without turning into a monster. I picked up the pen, then put it down, picked it up again. The smart thing would be to sign, to let Michael move on and find someone who would appreciate him. Someone who wouldn't accuse him of cheating while he rubbed her swollen feet. Someone who wouldn't call his cooking garbage while eating 3 servings. But I wasn't ready, not yet. Maybe not ever. My phone buzzed with another text from Amber. "Haven't heard from you? Everything okay?" I almost laughed. Everything okay? My husband had left me. I was 8 months pregnant and alone, living in an apartment paid for by the man I'd driven away with my psychotic behavior. I'd destroyed the best thing in my life because I'd listened to a toxic friend and my own twisted insecurities. No, Amber, everything was not okay. I deleted her text without responding. Then I deleted her number. She'd been poison in my ear for months, validating every paranoid thought, encouraging every bad impulse. Real friends didn't push you to test your partner's loyalty. Real friends didn't disappear when the consequences of their advice came crashing down. Then there was the digital cleanup. I spent Saturday night sitting in the dark, face illuminated by my phone screen, archiving 5 years of memories. I couldn't bring myself to delete them, but I couldn't look at them either. I archived the gender reveal video where Michael had cried when pink confetti popped out of the balloon. I archived the announcement photo with the tiny shoes lined up next to his work boots. I archived the selfies from our baby moon in Florida where he's kissing my cheek and I actually look happy. Hiding those photos felt like erasing proof that I was ever loved, but leaving them up felt like a lie. The afternoon stretched ahead of me, empty and long. In our old life, Michael would have been home by now on a Saturday, planning something for us to do. A movie, a walk in the park, a drive to get ice cream. He'd always been good at keeping me active and engaged, knowing that sitting home all day made my anxiety worse. Now I had nothing but time to sit and think about what I'd thrown away. Time to replay every fight, every cruel comment, every moment I'd chosen suspicion over trust. Time to wonder what would have happened if I just believed him when he said he loved me. If I'd accepted his kindness instead of questioning it. The cruelest part was that I could see it all so clearly now. The hormones hadn't completely scrambled my brain. I'd always had a choice in how I acted. I'd chosen to be cruel, chosen to be suspicious, chosen to listen to Amber's toxic whispers instead of Michael's patient reassurances. And the food thing. God, the food thing. What kind of person insults meal after meal while eating everything on their plate and going back for more? What kind of wife tells her husband his cooking is terrible when he comes home after a 12-hour day and still makes dinner from scratch? A bad one. A wife who didn't deserve him. The baby kicked again, harder this time. Braxton Hicks' contractions had started last week. Practice runs for the real thing. Soon I'd be in labor, and Michael would be there as promised, coaching me through contractions and meeting our daughter. But then he'd go home to our old house, and I'd come back here alone with a newborn. "This isn't how it was supposed to be," I said to the empty room. We'd had plans. Michael wanted to take 2 weeks off when the baby was born, wanted to be there for every feeding and diaper change. He'd bookmarked articles about being an involved father, about skin-to-skin contact and bonding. He'd been so excited to be a dad. He still would be a great dad, just not with me as his partner. I hauled myself off the couch and waddled to the kitchen. The fridge was full. Michael had made sure of that. Fresh fruit, vegetables, protein, all the things Dr. Patterson said I should be eating. There was even a container of soup from the deli I loved, the one across town that he must have driven to specially. Still taking care of me, even now. I heated the soup and ate it at my small dining table, remembering all the meals I'd ruined with my complaints. Michael's lasagna that I'd called barely edible. His perfectly grilled steaks I'd said were tough. His made-from-scratch pancakes I'd drowned in syrup while telling him they were flavorless. The soup was good, but it wasn't Michael's cooking. Nothing was as good as Michael's cooking, which I'd only realized after I'd driven him away with my constant criticism. My phone rang again. This time it was my mother, calling from Florida where she and Dad had retired. I'd been avoiding her calls, not wanting to explain why I was living in an apartment instead of the house she'd visited just 6 months ago. "Hi, Mom." "Jessica, finally! I've been trying to reach you for days. How are you feeling? How's the baby? How's Michael?" The questions hit like physical blows. How was Michael? Probably relieved to be free of his psychotic wife. Probably enjoying meals without someone calling them crap. Probably sleeping better without me accusing him of cheating every time he closed his eyes. "I'm fine. The baby's fine." "And Michael, is he taking good care of you? That man is a saint, I swear. The way he dotes on you." Doted. Past tense now, though Mom didn't know it yet. "Mom, I need to tell you something. Michael and we're separated." The silence on the other end stretched so long I wondered if the call had dropped. "Separated? What do you mean separated? You're 8 months pregnant." "I know, it's complicated." There was a long pause. "Jessica, what happened?" Another pause, heavier this time. "Was it something you did?" What did I do? Not what happened, not what did he do. My own mother immediately knew I was at fault. Because she knew Michael, knew he would never leave without being pushed to the absolute brink. "I messed up, Mom. I messed up really bad." The story poured out of me then. All of it. The paranoia, the accusations, the food criticism, the loyalty test. My mother listened in silence, occasionally making small sounds of disappointment that cut deeper than any lecture would have. "Oh, Jessica," she said when I'd finished. "Oh, honey, what were you thinking?" "I don't know, I wasn't thinking. I was just scared. Scared he'd leave me, so I pushed him away first. I became this horrible person and I couldn't stop." Pregnancy hormones are real, but they're not an excuse to treat your husband like that poor man. "I know." "Have you apologized? Really apologized?" "He won't talk to me. Everything goes through lawyers now. He's done, Mom. I broke us." "Then you need to fix it." "How? How do I fix this? He won't even look at me." "I don't know, honey, but you need to try. For you, for him, and for that baby. She deserves parents who at least try to make things work." After we hung up, I sat with my mother's words. Try. But how do you try when the person won't even speak to you? When you've broken trust so fundamentally that they've literally moved out while you're carrying their child? I pulled out a notebook and started writing a letter. Old-fashioned, but maybe that was what we needed. No texts he could delete unread, no calls he could send to voicemail. Just words on paper, my handwriting that he knew so well. "Dear Michael," I began, then stopped. "What did you say to the man you'd driven away with your cruelty? How did you apologize for months of emotional abuse disguised as pregnancy hormones?" I started again. "Michael, I know you don't want to hear from me. I know everything goes through lawyers now, but I need to say this, even if you never read it. I'm sorry. Those 2 words aren't enough, will never be enough, but they're all I have. I'm sorry for the criticism, the accusations, the constant doubting of your love. I'm sorry for making you work 80-hour weeks just to avoid coming home. I'm sorry for every meal I insulted while eating multiple servings. Most of all, I'm sorry for the test. For letting Amber convince me that your faithfulness needed proving, like you hadn't already proven it 1,000 times over. You passed every test I threw at you until that final one that wasn't about your loyalty at all, but about my sickness. I see it now, too late. I see how I took the best husband in the world and turned his life into a nightmare. I see how I twisted your love into something ugly with my paranoia. I see how I became someone neither of us recognizes. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect you to take me back. I just needed you to know that I know what I did. I know what I lost. I know what I threw away. You're going to be an amazing father. Our daughter is lucky to have you. even if I've made it so she'll only have you half the time. I'm sorry for that, too. Sorry she won't wake up every morning to both parents in the same house because her mother couldn't handle being loved without destroying it. I'm signing the divorce papers. You deserve to be free of me. To find someone who appreciates your cooking and your patience and your faithfulness without testing it like a science experiment. Someone who sees you working late and thinks, what a provider, instead of, what a cheater. Someone better than me. Thank you for the apartment, for the insurance, for still caring about our baby even though you can't stand her mother. Thank you for 5 years of marriage where you deserved better every single day. I love you. I know that's worth nothing now, but it's true. I loved you even while I was destroying us. Loved you while I was criticizing every meal. Loved you while I was accusing you of wanting other women. I just forgot how to show it in any way that wasn't toxic. Jessica. I read the letter over, then sealed it in an envelope before I could change my mind. I'd drop it at the house tomorrow when I knew he'd be at the gym. He might not read it, might throw it away unopened, but at least I'd tried. The baby kicked again, making my whole belly ripple. In a few weeks, she'd be here. This little girl who'd have her daddy's patient nature, I hoped, and not her mother's tendency toward destruction. She'd have 2 homes, 2 bedrooms, a split life that was my fault. But she'd be loved. That much I knew. Michael would love her with the same steadfast devotion he'd shown me before I'd poisoned it. And I'd love her too. Try to be better for her than I'd been for him. My phone buzzed with another message. This time it was from a number I didn't recognize. Hi Jessica, this is Tara. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I wanted to apologize. What Amber asked me to do was wrong, and I should have said no. I told Michael everything immediately because it didn't feel right. I'm sorry for my part in your troubles. I hope things work out for you and your baby. Even the woman who'd been hired to seduce my husband had more integrity than I did. She'd immediately confessed, unwilling to be part of our sick game. Meanwhile, I'd been gleefully waiting to see if Michael would pass or fail, like his years of devotion meant nothing. I texted back, "Thank you for telling him the truth. This is my fault, not yours. You did the right thing." She didn't respond, and I didn't expect her to. What else was there to say? She'd been a bit player in the drama I'd created, the final straw that broke my marriage. Evening came early in Memphis, February, the sky already darkening by 5 o'clock. In our old life, Michael would be starting dinner now. Something warming and comforting, maybe chili or pot roast or his famous chicken and dumplings. I'd be on the couch complaining about my feet hurting, and he'd pause his cooking to massage them before returning to the stove. Instead, I heated up a frozen dinner and ate it standing at the kitchen counter, too tired to even sit properly. Everything hurt now. My back, my feet, my sciatic nerve sending shooting pains down my leg. But there was no one to complain to, no one to rub the sore spots or bring me ice packs or tell me it would all be worth it when the baby came. I'd given all that up for the sick satisfaction of testing a man who'd never given me a reason to doubt him. The weekend passed in a blur of Netflix and naps, broken only by my trip to drop the letter at the house. I'd used my key one last time, slipping the envelope under the door like a coward before waddling back to my Uber. The house had looked the same from the outside, but I knew inside it was different now. Quieter, lonelier, missing the constant chaos I'd brought to Michael's ordered life. Monday morning meant another doctor's appointment. Dr. Patterson was cheerful as always, checking my blood pressure and measuring my belly, making sure baby girl was growing on track. "Everything looks perfect," she announced. "She's head down, ready to go. Could be any time now, really, though first babies usually take their time." "That's good," I managed. "And how are you doing? Any concerns? Anxiety about labor?" Anxiety. I almost laughed. I had anxiety about everything except labor. Labor would be a relief compared to the crushing weight of what I'd done to my life. "I'm okay." Dr. Patterson studied me with the keen eye of someone who'd been delivering babies for 20 years. "Jessica, I have to ask, is everything okay at home? You seem sad." "Michael and I separated." Her face fell. She'd met Michael at several appointments, had seen how attentive he was, how excited about the baby. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. That must be so difficult, especially right now." "It's my fault," I heard myself say. "I drove him away. I was awful to him, and he finally had enough." Pregnancy can be hard on relationships. "No," I cut her off. "Don't make excuses for me. Plenty of women get pregnant without becoming monsters. I chose to be cruel. I chose to be paranoid. I chose to test his loyalty, like he was some kind of cheater instead of the most devoted husband in the world. This is on me." Dr. Patterson nodded slowly. "Well, acknowledging our mistakes is the first step. Have you considered counseling? For yourself, I mean. Postpartum is going to be challenging, even with support. Alone, with this guilt you're carrying." "I'll think about it," I lied. The truth was, therapy couldn't fix what I'd broken. No amount of talking would make Michael trust me again, would erase the months of emotional abuse I'd put him through. But I appreciated her concern, even if it was misplaced. I left the appointment and decided to walk for a while despite my aching everything. Walking helped sometimes, cleared my head and reminded me there was a world beyond my self-created disaster. Memphis in February was cold but bright, the kind of crisp day that made you feel alive. I waddled down familiar streets, past coffee shops where Michael and I used to spend Sunday mornings, past the park where he'd proposed 3 years ago. Every corner held a memory of better times, before I'd lost my mind and destroyed everything good in my life. My phone rang as I passed our old favorite restaurant, the Italian place where we'd had our first date. Michael's ringtone. My heart stopped. "Hello?" "Jessica." His voice was carefully neutral, giving nothing away. "I got your letter." "Oh." "I wanted to thank you for acknowledging what happened, for taking responsibility. It doesn't change anything, does it?" A long pause. "No, it doesn't. I'm glad you see what went wrong, but Jessica, you terrorized me for months. You made me dread coming home to my own house. You made me feel like nothing I did was good enough, and then the test, that was unforgivable." "I know." "I'll be there for the birth. I'll co-parent with you. I'll make sure you and the baby have everything you need. But us? We're done. We have to be done. I can't ever go through that again." "I understand." "Do you? Because I need you to understand this isn't about punishing you. This is about protecting myself and protecting our daughter from growing up in a toxic environment." "I understand," I repeated, tears streaming down my face. "Good. I'll see you at the hospital when it's time. Take care of yourself." He hung up, and I stood there on the sidewalk crying like the pregnant disaster I was. A couple walked by, giving me a wide berth, probably assuming I was having some kind of breakdown. Which wasn't wrong. I'd done this. I'd taken a man who loved me unconditionally, and conditionally loved him based on my insecurities and paranoia. I'd tested and pushed and prodded until he broke, and now I got to live with the consequences while our daughter paid the price. The walk back to my apartment felt longer than the walk out. Each step was a reminder that I was walking alone, that the man who should have been beside me was somewhere else, rebuilding a life I'd shattered with my cruelty. When I finally made it back, there was a package waiting at my door. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. Michael's careful print, each letter perfectly formed. Inside was a small box and a note. "For the baby," the note read. "This was mine when I was born. I'd like her to have it, regardless of our situation." I opened the box to find a tiny silver rattle, tarnished with age, but beautiful. His initials were engraved on the handle, MPT Michael Paul Turner. He'd mentioned it once, how his mother had saved it all these years, planning to pass it down to his child. Now it would belong to our daughter, a piece of her father she could hold even when he wasn't there. Because I'd made sure he wouldn't always be there. Made sure with every accusation, every criticism, every test of his love that pushed him further away until he had no choice but to leave. I placed the rattle carefully in the nursery box I'd started, along with the few baby items I'd managed to accumulate. Michael still had the dream nursery at the house. The matching crib he'd assembled, the rocking chair he'd surprised me with, the changing table he'd spent hours researching. All waiting for a baby who'd only use them half the time. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd spent months convinced Michael would leave me for someone younger, thinner, less pregnant. Instead, I'd driven him away with my own behavior, creating the very outcome I'd feared most, a self-fulfilling prophecy of the worst kind. Night fell, and with it came the loneliness that had become my constant companion. No Michael to curl up with on the couch. No one to feel the baby kick and marvel at the miracle we'd created. No one to reassure me that everything would be okay when labor started and I was scared. I'd done this, all of it, and now I had to live with it. The baby kicked hard, a reminder that soon I wouldn't be alone. Soon I'd have a daughter to care for, to love, to try not to damage the way I'd damaged her father. Maybe I could be better for her. Maybe I could learn from my mistakes and be the mother she deserved, even if I'd failed at being the wife Michael deserved. Or maybe I was kidding myself. Maybe the same poisonous insecurity that had destroyed my marriage would seep into my parenting. Maybe I'd accuse her of loving her father more, criticize her choices while demanding her affection, test her love in sick little ways until she too had no choice but to distance herself from my toxicity. God, I hoped not. I hoped the clarity that had come too late to save my marriage would at least help me be a decent mother. I hoped I could look at this innocent baby and choose to be better, to break the cycle of destruction I'd started. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hi, Jessica, this is Sarah from your old Mommy and Me class. I heard about you and Michael. I'm so sorry. If you need anything or just want to talk, I'm here." Sarah. I barely knew her, had only attended a few classes before my paranoia made me suspicious of how friendly she was with the other husbands. But here she was, reaching out with more kindness than I deserved. I texted back a simple thank you, too exhausted to explain that her sympathy was misplaced. That Michael wasn't the villain in this story, that I'd destroyed my own life with a level of cruelty that still shocked me when I thought about it. The rest of the evening passed quietly. I ate leftover soup, watched mindless television, felt the baby move and shift inside me. Braxton Hicks contractions came and went, practice for the real thing that would happen soon. Each one was a reminder that time was running out, that soon I'd have to face labor without the partner who'd promised to be there for every moment. He'd still be there, technically. He'd keep his word because that's who Michael was, but it would be different now. Clinical, distant, co-parents sharing a medical event, not a couple welcoming their child into the world. I'd done that. Turned what should have been the happiest moment of our lives into a formal arrangement between exes. When I finally crawled into bed, alone in my double that felt too big without Michael beside me, I thought about the timeline of destruction. 6 months ago, we'd been happy. Excited about the pregnancy, planning our future, in love and secure. Then the hormones had hit, or maybe just my own latent insecurity had found an excuse to surface. Either way, I'd systematically dismantled everything good in my life with the precision of a surgeon. Death by 1,000 cuts, each criticism and accusation slicing away at Michael's love until there was nothing left but scar tissue. The loyalty test had been the final cut, the one that severed us completely. But the damage had been accumulating for months, every meal I'd insulted while devouring, every time I'd accused him of checking out other women, every night I'd scrolled through his phone looking for evidence of cheating that didn't exist. I lay there in the dark, hand on my belly, and whispered apologies to the baby who'd never know her parents as a unit. Who'd have 2 birthday parties, 2 Christmases, 2 of everything except the one thing that mattered, a family that was whole. "I'm sorry, baby girl," I said to the darkness. "I'm so sorry I broke us before you even got here. Your daddy loves you so much. He'll be the best father. And I'll try to be better for you than I was for him. I promise I'll try." She kicked in response, strong and insistent, like she was already fighting for her place in the world. She'd need that strength, growing up in the fractured family I'd created. She'd need her father's patience and her mother's— What? What good qualities did I have left to give her? I'd figure it out. I had to. Because in a few weeks she'd be here and she'd need more from me than paranoia and cruelty. She'd need a mother who could love without testing, trust without doubting, appreciate without criticizing. Maybe I could learn to be that person. Maybe destroying the best thing in my life would teach me how to build something better for her. Maybe. Or maybe I was still the same selfish, insecure person who'd driven away the only man who'd ever truly loved me. Maybe some people were just too broken to fix, too poisonous to change. Time would tell. But as I finally drifted off to sleep, alone in my apartment paid for by the man I'd emotionally abused for months, I made a promise to the baby and to myself. I'd try to be better, try to heal, try to become someone worthy of the title mother, even if I'd failed spectacularly at wife. It wasn't much, but it was all I had left. That, and the knowledge that somewhere across Memphis, Michael was probably sleeping peacefully for the first time in months, free from the constant criticism and accusations that had become his daily life. I'd given him that, at least. Freedom from me. It was the only gift I had left to give, and he'd more than earned it. I looked at the corner of the living room where I knew the swing would eventually go. It looked empty. Everything looked empty. I realized then that I wasn't just losing a husband. I was losing the witness to my life. There would be no one to share the tired look across the room when the baby finally slept. No one to laugh with when she blew her first raspberry. I would be doing all the hard parts alone, and Michael would be the Disney dad, the fun one she saw on weekends who had energy and patience because he wasn't dealing with the 3 a.m. scream fests every single night. I had handed him the perfect excuse to walk away, and I had handed myself a life sentence of single motherhood. The baby settled, finally still after hours of movement. We slept, the two of us, waiting for a birth that would bring joy and sorrow in equal measure. A beginning and an ending, a hello and a goodbye, all wrapped up in one tiny person who deserved so much better than the broken family her mother had created. But broken was all I had to offer now, broken and sorry and too damn late.